presentation.
We'll start in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We're just sorting out a couple of tech things to make sure the subsequent bit works sweetly. So just bear with us for a minute or so, if that's okay. Very much for helping sort that out. Thank you. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Stevens External Partnerships Select Committee. I'm hoping it will be slightly less lively than the news today. I don't think we're planning to put 50% tariffs on anything this evening. We'll leave that to Donald Trump. I think the first bit we probably want to just run through is just the safety announcements. We've got some members of the public. Eddie, would you be okay to that? Because you're so much better than I am.
Thanks, Chair. There's no fire drill tonight. The fire alarm is allowed continuous ring. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the building promptly and calmly, using the stairs next to the lift if possible. The fire escape in the council chamber should only be used as a last resort. Do not stop to gather personal belongings and do not use the lift. The evacuation point is at street level in the Knoll Road multi-storey car park, and the assembly point is indicated by a green sign. Do not leave the assembly point until you're told it is safe to do so. And lastly, for those in attendance with limited mobility in the case of evacuation, please let yourself be known to myself.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Eddie. So we then have apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence this evening?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Louise Ashbury. Councillor Bob Rakes is subbing in her place.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Bob. We then come to Chair's announcements and welcome to guests. I think it's obvious from the agenda and the topics we've got, it's likely to be a lengthier than normal meeting this evening. So I thought Chair's announcements I'd keep very limited. You'll be grateful to hear. Councillor Richard Wilson won't be joining us this evening to give his report back from the police and crime panel, as he's only just arrived back from work. And obviously looking at the length of the meeting, he's agreed to slip that till the next meeting. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome Nick and Julie from Accent Housing, and also Councillor Lisa Feening-Cook, who's our exec member for that particular area. Welcome. So we then move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Committee, are you happy with the minutes of the previous meeting and for me to sign it as a true and accurate record? Excellent. There's lots of nods. This is positive. I like this. Always good to start on a positive note. Thank you very much, everyone. So we then move on to item 4, which is declarations of interest. Obviously, members, we've got Accent Housing, Surrey Police and the committee work programme. Does anyone have any declarations of interest at this point in time? Nope. Obviously, as we move into the main agenda, if you feel something is actually a declaration of interest that you want to raise, just raise it at that appropriate time. Make it very clear to myself, Nick, or Nick, Eddie. Oh, I've got an echo. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. Without any declarations of interest, we then move on to public question time. I think technically the only two members of the public here. I'm assuming as you're doing the Accent Housing item next, you're happy not to ask any public questions. You're always very welcome to. I'm always very open with that one. Nope. Okay. Fantastic. So we move on to item 6 on the agenda. This is going fast. Touch wood. This is going fast. So Nick, Julie, who wants to lead on this one?
Shall we share? We've got a few slides. And
fantastic. So do you want to just very briefly introduce yourself, Nick? Because I know I've been fortunate enough, along with a number of committee members, to meet you, but don't think everyone has. So if you can just give very quick sort of elevator pitch of yourself, that would be amazing.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is Nick Apetroye, Chief Exec at Accent. And when I do some introduction, there's 2 questions that come up very early in that conversation. One is, how do you pronounce your surname? And where is the surname from? So let's get this out of the way. So my surname is pronounced Apetroye, but I take any pronunciation. My children are born here in the UK and they're struggling sometime. Originally, it's from Romania, so it goes back to about 30 years ago when I sort of came to London. I've been at Accent now for 5 months. Prior to that, I was a chief exec of a couple of other housing associations in the south and southeast. Also, I've been a director of property and responsible for development, and my first part of my career was actually in the healthcare sector. So I started my first role 30 years ago was a care worker and become a care director and then moved into housing. I live in West London, so this is very sort of, is an area that's very local to me. And also, as I discovered, this is our largest local authority for Accent as well. Therefore, it's quite important that we build a good presence here. Just another sort of quick few words in terms of my sort of observation. So being here for 5 months now, I was really lucky on my first day to actually do what we call the big conversation when we went and I think Lisa and Nick joined us, which was really nice to see that on the first day. And I suppose my observations are that we got some really great services of Accent, but also there's some areas that we can improve. So Julie and I are working really hard with the team to just to make sure that our service is all consistently good. At the moment, there's kind of a bit of work to be done. But the main feedback that I've been getting is contractors' performance, and we're going to touch on that later. Julie has got a few slides. Communications, how do we improve our communication between Accent and our customers, but also councillors as well. Also, what do we do about new schemes, development? We know there's a shortage of housing. We need to do more there. And current stock. So we got some good stock, but there's some stock that looks a bit tired. It needs some more investment, and we'll be talking about that today as well. So that's the sort of the themes that I picked up from my visit. And also we got some more visits planned on the 11th of April as well. So that's me as an introduction.
Fantastic, Nick. I guess that segues neatly into yourself, Julie. Welcome.
I can't get the technology. I think I've seen everybody before. I've been here a few times now. I get invited back, so thank you very much. I'm Julie Whittick. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Accent. Been here just over 3 years now. And I'm responsible for all the housing services and the customer contact services and all of the repairs and maintenance as well for the organisation. So I thought I'd kind of touch on hopefully all the areas of concern tonight and show you some performance data. I thought I'd start with heating repairs because I know that this is something that certainly, Lisa, we've had some conversations. So I know there have been some concerns about performance with our heating contractor. So I just wanted to put some facts and figures up and own it really. So you may have known them as K&T Heating. They're now called SureServe. Just some stats here from the 1st September to the end of February. So they've done 951 repairs. That's just in this region here. You can see that some of those are emergency 24 hours, 28 calendar days. 24 hours emergency, 4 hours and 28 calendar days, and that's how they're broken down. I just wanted to also say some positive, as well as doing the repairs, we also do about 3,000 services of our boilers as well. And we've replaced in the last 3 years 582 boilers. We've got another 40 to do in the next few weeks. And we'll do a minimum of 116 over the next the next financial year. And those are just planned ones. So if there's any emergency replacements as well. I think, interestingly, 52% of the heating systems, boilers in this region are less than 5 years old. And 76% are under 10 years old, and we say that the lifespan of a boiler is 15 years old. I've been doing this such a long time, I remember when it was 35 years that boilers used to last, but progress apparently not so much. So this just gives you a bit of a clue, sort of heating repairs raised between 2022 and 2025, so just to show you the numbers really. So if you look at the yellow line, that's the heating repairs. They have actually gone down since previous years. And I think interestingly, when we look at the next slide of complaints, and I know that we've had breakdowns and I know we've had issues, but we used to have TSG working in this area doing our heating repairs, and they were really poor, and we exited TSG. SureServe are a lot better. They're not perfect. We have got some issues, but TSG in the same period had 150 complaints compared to 54 with SureServe. And just to give some assurance as well, I'll give you this is what the complaints that we receive are about, but I just wanted to I know there have been some issues and some complaints raised on our councillors' inquiries, but just so you know, we do externally quality audit our gas safe contractors, and they have 100% record SureServe, so in their latest audit, so we audit them regularly with an external supplier. So they don't always get it right, they don't always, but certainly we do have an external verification of what they're doing, just to give some assurance around that. But you can see here the reasons for the complaint. Hopefully you can read that actually. I've been doing slides all day and I couldn't read the ones earlier, so these are quite good. But there's a mix of reasons, but those are the number of complaints we've had since the 1st of April up till the end of February. Shall I just move through, and then if anyone's got any questions you can ask me at the end, would that be best? So this is some repairs performance data. I'm really pleased that Ian Williams, I hear positive comments about Ian Williams. They've had issues, but I think it's really positive if you look on the top line. Our emergency repairs performance with Ian Williams is really very strong. It's not 100%, which is what their target is, but it's pretty good. In January, it was 98%. February 95.6. Routine repairs, there's work to do, so they're only just hitting, the performance has gone down on routine repairs, so they're just about hitting 70% at the moment. And repairs completed at the first visit is sort of around the 80% mark on average. Again, their targets are higher than that. There's been a lot of change in this region. It's a very difficult region with regards to labour. So we do have struggles, but Ian Williams are definitely improving and are working with us, and we've got really good relationships with them. Just to give you an idea about damp and mould in this area as well, it might look shocking that the numbers have gone up so much, but I think that's more about we are triaging more now. At every repairs visit, we ask whether people have got issues with damp and mould, irrelevant of why we're doing that repair. And so that has increased the reporting, which is only a positive thing as far as I'm concerned, because it means that we can go out and deal with issues. So we monitor those. I get those figures every day. We report them to our board and to our committees as well. So we're working hard to ensure that our damp and mould cases are dealt with promptly. There's just some turnaround figures there for how our average void turnaround in this region. So in February, it was 23 days. We received 62 complaints in total, and in February there were 9 councillor MP inquiries, but you can see the figures across the bottom. So really positively, we are investing in this region. So up until the end of January, we'd spent £3 million in this region on capital planned investment works. So that's 400 components being replaced. That's kitchens, bathrooms, windows, boilers, roofs. We've still got more. I had Nick asked me this question, and I checked with my head of planned delivery this morning. I said, are you really going to spend £2 million in the next few weeks? And I was assured that the South region is the one that is absolutely on track for delivery. So they're absolutely nailing it. Next year, we've got about 5 million of capital investment works in this region. So we shall be replacing just over 1,300 components in homes. So that, I think, is really positive. So moving on to councillor inquiries, just to give you a bit of a taste. So I covered this at the last meeting, actually. We were next door, weren't we, last time when we had the last meeting? But we've got 18 other local authority areas that we deal with, and this just gives you an idea of, on the left-hand pie chart, since the 1st of September to the 1st of March, the number of inquiries that we've had from councillors. So in our other 18 local authorities, it's 78 and 58 for this region alone, just to give you an idea of the volumes. And on the right, the pie chart gives you an idea of what those things are around. So antisocial behaviour, heating, damp and mould, and then other things which fall into a more general category. Okay, so just moving on to antisocial behaviour cases that we've got in this area. Again, just a snapshot here of from September to the end of February to give you an idea of some of the things that we're dealing with on the ground. So relating to antisocial behaviour, so various issues here. Probably unsurprising to most of you, but I'm sure that a lot of councillors deal with customers on these issues. But this is just to show you that we do monitor it closely. We deal with these cases, and our housing partners are really, you know, on the ground trying to resolve issues with our customers. And then I just wanted to give you an idea as well of some of the safeguarding reports that we've had in this area as well. So 29 cases recorded since the 1st of September. And we have recently reviewed our procedure with safeguarding, and we are always trying to improve. We had a very serious case in this area, which was a domestic homicide, which I'm sure you're aware of, that unfortunately was one of our residents, which is very sad, but safeguard is something we take very seriously, and we monitor those cases as well. The other thing that I said that I would just put up, so I think one of the queries that has come through is about who to contact. We've had quite a lot of staff changes in this region. So I just thought, I don't know whether you can see that, I will send the slides afterwards, but this is just so that, you know, we do have some vacancies at the moment, but this will just give you an idea of which housing partners deal with which areas so that you know who to contact. We have got a new housing services director, so you knew Louise Graham-Smith left. We've now got somebody called Rob Bloom. He's worked at Accent for 6 years, so he knows sort of the organisation very, very well. He knows some of the issues and some of the improvements we're trying to make, some of the transformation that we're doing. And Rob started in his role in mid-January, and he's really getting to grips with things. And he's very, very committed to improving performance. He's really committed to excellent customer service. So I'm really confident that under Rob's leadership, we'll continue to improve even further. So I think that was all I was going to say, a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but are there any questions? Yes.
I've got an array of hands up. Sean, Julie, Mary. Are there any hands I've missed? Murray, Dave. Sean.
Julie, can you just switch your red button? Thank you. Thank you.
I was going to say
Okay. So thank you both. I think I want to start by thanking Jill. I think is your assistant, or I mean, she is unbelievable. I mean, she gets a plethora of emails from me, not as many as I used to get. I must admit, and I just like to publicly thank her because she basically. I think, as I said to you in the chamber before, when I get a complaint, it's usually because they've tried all the other routes, and pretty much 9 times out of 10, we get a response from Jill, and it's usually solves the issue. So please pass on my personal thanks. Also, Ian Williams, 2 years ago, I think, we had a workshop in Camby Theatre. And before that, it was fair to say my inbox was, I won't say full, but I had a lot of issues with Ian Williams. We were discussing this earlier on. I'm pretty sure that I can't remember the last time I had an issue with anything to do with Ian Williams. So again, whatever has happened, whatever's changed, it's not, and it hasn't been an issue, and touch wood, that will continue to be the case. However, interesting, I had my meeting with Nick last week, and he brought up K&T, who I understand have now changed their name to SureServe. Yeah. Is that a recent thing? Okay. Is it the same? Don't answer these all now. I'm just going to throw it. Is it the same company, just changed their name? Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And you did mention TSG, and yes, historically we had issues with TSG as well. I think my biggest concern with K&T is my inbox has certainly increased in the last 6 months, maybe. it's that time of year. So it's, you know, it's cold, people want their heating to work. I think my concern is around the quality of work from what I'm being told by residents. And I'm interested that you have an externally audited of those engineers, because I'm seeing horror stories, and I get there's two sides to every story, but when you have 3 or 4 people all come to you with the same sort of issues, then someone's not telling the truth, okay? So I have a concern with the quality of the work. I know you're saying it's all being audited externally. I would love to see some sort of some feedback, or if that's something you can actually supply. Yeah. Also, customer service wise with K&T, and it's generally K&T. I mean, we used to have the same issue with Ian Williams. If someone takes the morning off work to have the boiler fitted, and they don't get a text, they get a text message to say that's going to happen, and then they take the morning off work, and then they don't turn up, and they don't get told a reason, and then they ring up and they don't give a reason, and then they're told that someone came out, and they've got a Ring doorbell that proves that they didn't come out. Yeah. So, and that's not anecdotal. That's happened at least on a couple of occasions, and that I know of at least 1 or 2 residents where that's happened 3 times. Now, at some point, they're going to say, "I'm not taking any more time off work." Okay. So that's certainly an issue. And reference to complaints, and my biggest concern around that is, I've had residents say, what is the point of complaining, because it isn't going to make a difference. Now, I actively tell my residents to complain, okay? Purely because I know that helps you guys. Because if there is, as I said to Nick on the phone, you're the supplier of the housing and the resident is your first port of contact, but they're your subcontractor. So as far as they're concerned, if it doesn't work, it's your fault, yeah? And that's the problem. So I'm telling these people to complain. They don't always complain. So I'm concerned that the stats, because they don't look very high, bearing in mind the amount of complaints I get.
Sean,
I don't want to
stop you mid-flow, but I think you've covered off every point of every other councillor in the committee so far. I think in the very nicest possible way, if we can sort of stay closer to areas, because I think Johnny and Bob and others would love to ask a few questions as well.
That's fine. They were all ones under customer service as far as I'm concerned. So that's it all comes down to that for me. And the last question is, did anyone from TSG TP over to the company that was K&T that is now SureServe?
That is the way it works, and quite possibly, I don't know.
No, okay.
You just need to tap that button. As long as you've got a red light.
Sorry. So I take on board what you said. Alex and I, who's the Director of Assets and Compliance, who hopefully you've met, Alex Liebert, he came to this meeting, I think, last time with Louise. We've had a conversation about it today. We're going to try and get the representatives from SureServe on the 11th of April to come to a meeting with councillors so that they can actually talk about the issues that that people are experiencing, and they can hear it firsthand, which is what we did with Ian Williams, and that was really positive. And I think that it helped to give some assurance that they were trying really hard to do a good job. I think with SureServe, what I do know is that they have increased their staff members for the customer service because of the reasons that you say, and they've also taken on additional subcontractors. Now, that only works if they are quality subcontractors, as we know, but I can assure you that we do check, and we do have this external audit. I can absolutely, they got 100%, like I said, and that's above the average, which is about 96% normally. But I can get you that evidence.
Can they increase that spot checks that they do?
Well, what we're going to do is some of the issues that have been raised, we're going to get those specific properties checked. Correct. So that's been arranged today. So I know there was a concern, and so that's absolutely, we're going to get the auditor to go and have a look at that, because I don't want anybody to feel unsafe in their home. So that will be done, yeah.
Okay. I'm guessing as Sean's asked your question, Mary, do you want to come back on that one?
Yes, I was just going to say, which I think you've answered, that I was going to suggest that we did have a workshop with SureServe to iron out those problems. And I know, as you said, when we had the one with Williams, it did work out very well. And so are we planning that for the 11th of April then, from what you were saying?
Yeah, so I think the 11th of April is a date that we've agreed. We've talked about that, haven't we, Lisa? So if that's doable for people, that would be great. So as much representation, obviously, from the councillors as we can get would be fantastic. If it doesn't work that date, we will find another one that does. So I don't know, Eddie, whether you want to, I don't know, or Nick, or... Yeah. Just let us know and we'll... But we have penciled that date in. It's actually in pen in my diary.
Right, thank you very much for that.
I've got Julie Hode next.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question which is about a specific problem area that comes up, and that's the issue of damp and mould. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and it was obvious that the percentage of properties that have this as an issue does vary across the board, and the areas in our in our borough. I was just wondering if you could shed any sort of practical light on what the underlying causes of this are. So are they, for example, the age of the properties, the design of the properties, what percentage of them are the way the occupant uses them, the problem about not ventilating, drying laundry inside. Can you just give a snapshot of why, for example, in my ward, the accent housing there, damp and mould doesn't come up very often as an issue, but in other places it's clearly a huge problem. Thank you.
I think there will be type and age of property, that will be an issue. I can tell you that of all the cases that get reported to us, most are very minor and don't need major works to deal with them, which would imply that, so where there's a major structural issue, when I say major, it could be the damp course, it could need additional ventilation. So we're quite experienced in doing those things. Well, we'll go and have a look. Is there extraction? Is there enough, and we would implement those additional things in the home. Very rarely it might be the damp course. It could be a leak with the roof. So it could be, those we would describe as major issues. Most of the time it is, we don't like to say about lifestyle because it's not, but most of the time it is about, we need to have a good heat, heating needs to be on, ventilation in the home, those sorts of issues. So it varies, to be honest with you, but I would say some homes may be more prone to it than others. But we are, we go and we deal with it. We send surveyors and we see what's needed. Often it's minor and it's a wash down and just a different way of dealing with it.
With instances which are the latter, whereas it's the way the property is being used, do you have a sort of a crib sheet or a checklist that we can use? So, for example, if I, as a councillor, get a resident that says, oh, my property's got damp, can you come out and look? It will probably be helpful for me to say, well, are you doing this? Let's look at that, because we could potentially resolve some of those behavioural things before. So it's only more structural stuff that escalates.
We can absolutely send that to you.
Really
we
useful,
can absolutely do that. That's fine.
Because I don't know what to advise, but I look and I think there's probably some helpful things I could suggest. I don't know what they are.
I can send you some info.
Do you want to sum that one up, Nick? Thank you.
Just want to add that actually the government has just introduced a law, our law. So from October, there will be some very clear timescales that we have to meet as housing association when we deal with mould. So from the moment a damp and mould is being reported, we have to go to the property within 14 days. And we have to write a report of our findings and send it back to the tenant within 48 hours. And the work has to start within 7 days of sending the report to remedy the problem. So that's becoming law from October. So the whole sector is preparing for meeting those timescales.
I was going to come on, you touched on that summation, but that huge peak in the damp and mould is obviously it's teasing out those sort of systemic problems that need tackling. So that's good to see that it's being tackled proactively. But when you're into triple figures, it's quite scary to see that up on screen as members, particularly given they're clearly long-standing issues. Councillor Dave Hoff.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to look at a little bit more around sort of communication. One of the common themes I hear is like around contractors that are sort of like either not turning up or turn up, haven't got the right parts, or they're not the right people for the job and have to come back and rebook. And a lot of the feeling I get is that the residents don't know what's going on or what the next steps are. And there appears to be a bit of sort of confusion sometimes around who they should contact, if it be their customer partners, the contractors directly, and then if the contractors are employing subcontractors, that gets a bit more sort of confusing as well. So I was just sort of like interested in how that's all coordinated and how residents are sort of kept informed, because obviously there are a lot of residents who are booking time off work and then having to book other days, and it's just the frustration of losing that number of days without really knowing what's going on.
So, that's not good enough, and we do know that that does happen on occasion. Just to put a little bit of perspective, we do over 70,000 responsive repairs a year. Most of them go quite smoothly, but when they go wrong, they seem to go terribly wrong. We do have a technical hub. So we have a repairs hub, which is a central kind of contact point for people to report repairs and property issues. And that's where customers should go to when they're either reporting a repair or chasing a repair, which they shouldn't have to chase, don't get me wrong. We are making some improvements to our system so that Ian Williams can talk to us better over the system. So there's an integration piece which is being done at the moment, so that when they put notes on, they get transferred to our hub, and then we can do the contact that way. Because there is a breakdown of communication sometimes, with one party thinking that the other party is doing that. So we can definitely get better at that. And that is on our radar, and we've got those improvements. We've got a big transformation programme at Accent currently, and that is mainly around digital. And I can honestly say that Ian Williams are absolutely on board with that on the responsive repairs side, in that their IT director is working with our IT team to make those improvements. So, but in the first instance, people should phone our technical hub, which is the number that we publicise, and that's where those are the people that can help them with the repairs issues.
Nick.
Just to add all that work that we're doing on transformation. So Julia and I have been talking about this particular issues because I like to sort of regularly just to listen to some of the calls from the customers. And when I did that recently, it was quite obvious that sometimes job seems to be closed on the system before the work has been done. So we agree we're going to do a bit of a deep dive just to find out how many of those jobs have been closed before actually the work has been done. So I think we identified that there is some improvement needs to be done, and I think we've been talking to Ian Williams about that as well.
I've got Bob.
Yeah, my question really was on the communication theme, which is, half of this stuff is in the end communications, as we've heard this evening. And obviously you've had some changes in staff. Staffing around here is always a challenge, and I think the council are very aware of that. I was pleased to see the list of contacts, but occasionally the external partnerships. Is there a way to regularly communicate who should be contacted for councillors and or residents?
So we do have a councillor inbox, which my wonderful Jill monitors, and I can assure you, if you email that, you will get a response. She's absolutely fantastic. Our website now has all of the housing partners for every area, so that will be kept up to date now. So that's a new thing. We did get a new website in September, October time. It was probably more like October. And now if you go on there, you can see exactly who manages which areas for housing partners. So that will always be up to date. So that's the best place to look for those details.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just trying to work through. Got that one, so move to that one next. Okay. So, bear with me for a second. So I think just touching on K&T for a moment, I think, was the 100% you mentioned in relation to K&T? Yes. Have you ever Googled K&T?
No.
I have. If they've got 100%, I'd love to see the evidence to back it up. One or two bad reviews on Google is one thing, but there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of one-star reviews. And I've just scrolled down. I think I've seen one 5-star review on the page I'm looking at, and every single other one is 1 star. There seems to be a slight correlation issue here. I think presenting that 100% stat without any evidence to back it up is maybe making me feel slightly uncomfortable, given what I've seen on screen here and some of the things I've heard here. So I think we need to be careful with those kinds of stats, because potentially councillors can then repeat them to customers and then be told, well, actually, that's clearly not true.
I've got the evidence. We
Well-
have an external auditor that audits what they do. We have to do that. The regulator requires
So I think
that.
it would be interesting then to see that evidence to back it up. If you could share that, that would be very interesting. Because as I say, it doesn't correlate with other touch points. And obviously that survey will be a point in time. So it'd be interesting to see how it correlates. And I think your example, Nick, of listening into some of the calls and the examples you've seen tends to more correlate with experiences we're seeing. And we're also seeing, as you've highlighted, quite a high level of council inquiries. Now, I know previously you've raised concerns about councillors perhaps farming for cases, but certainly I spent quite a lot of time recently listening, and I've not seen that farming happening in any of the levels that I would see as concerning. It's more about engaging with their residents, which is good practice, Nick.
Yeah, I think we'll look into that and see whether we need to widen the scope of those checks, just to make sure that, you know, we're capturing all the areas that might not be performing as well as they should. But yeah, we'll definitely take that back.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Just following on the usual thing about damp. Last Sunday I went to a premises, and we have to rely on what people tell us, more so than you do, because you've got various other checks you can actually bring in. But I was told that this man had been working many months for action to be done about it. There'd been people out, but it had gone away. And it was a very serious damp that was almost halfway across the
Murray,
ceiling.
I think we're falling into casework here. I thought you were going to ask a great question on
I
public
think we were
realm
waiting for
improvements.
to the executive, I thought. That was the question to him.
Sorry, I'm
It was a
confused.
question to Nick later on. That's why I understood it.
Yes.
Okay, but this is a question on what we were discussing from the presentation of the previous speaker. It's relation to that.
Oh, so you want to go back to mould? Okay.
Sorry? So the situation was that nothing had really effectively been done, and it was quite concerning. Another major issue, as far as I've been confronted with, is if you know Avenue Susi, there's areas in front of the property which one of the tenants decided that they would build what is uniformly known as a humper in front of the property. And we ran into considerable difficulty persuading that should actually not happen. And finally, the tenant was persuaded to remove it. But the consequence could be that throughout the whole of this particular area of our council estate, there could be similar lean-tos built, almost seemingly without much comeback. It took probably the best part of 4 or 5 months before the offending document was removed.
We're moving into casework now. I'm going to have to intervene. I'm really sorry. This is about strategic.
Oh, I'm fed up with this. You intervene all the time, Chairman, and pick on me.
Murray,
I think the executive should have a look at that.
Murray, they're very
I've
welcome
explained the
to.
situation. This is not to...
We're talking about a
visiting
lean-to
speaker.
against a house, which potentially identifies the tenants.
Sorry?
This is a public meeting. Sorry, Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in. Clearly, Councillor Rowlands, you expressed a concern about an individual case. What we're trying to do here is talk at a more strategic level about general themes and principles.
Can I just
and whilst
interrupt?
I understand the issue...
We were talking in the context of damp. So it was a situation I discovered in relation to damp. And the Housing Association was saying of what they'd done about it. So it was very relevant to talk about that. And the Chief Executive explained what action they're going to do in the future or what will be coming from government policy. So it was very relevant to that.
Yeah, indeed. My apprehension, though, Councillor Rowlands, is you were talking about an unauthorised structure that had been built in the garden of one of the properties. And that's very much delving into individual cases, which is what... And you would appreciate that's already been resolved. We're grateful for Axon to actually resolving that on behalf of you, on behalf of the residents that have complained, and also on behalf of our corporate enforcement team, because we didn't need to step in because Axon had dealt with it.
Can I comment on that? I think the difficulty is that if you look at Avenue Susi, there are numbers of areas where such property might be built. And the worrying thing was if that was allowed to proceed, there may be a major problem for the council. And we had some difficulty in persuading the person who built it to actually remove it.
Murray, we're moving into specific casework. It's potentially identifying a person which puts us at risk under GDPR. Please, can I ask you not to go into specifics, please? Okay. Councillor Almo.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask a question about the emergency repair law taking effect from October 2025. You already mentioned it, Nick, but can you explain how you will get organized to fix the problem? Because apparently you will have to act very, very quick. You will have more contractors working for you or extra staff? Thank you.
So I think that one of the main things is that we're working with our main contractors to make sure that they're sort of resourced up to make sure they can deal with things quickly. We do have some specialist damp and mould contractors that work with us as well. As you can imagine, demand will be great. And it is... it's really hard to get good contractors and labour, especially in this area. And you know, you've heard me talk before, we've been through a lot down here in terms of exiting contractors that weren't doing a good enough job for us. And it's not an easy area. But we are securing more damp and mould specialists. We are training our teams to identify it better. And I think, as I said, you know, all the stats that we look at and all the cases that we look at, most of them are quite minor. So it's quite rare that there's a major structural issue that needs to be addressed. So most things can be dealt with in the normal repairs sort of route. I think we've got damp and mould specific surveyors at the moment. What we're doing is we're training all the surveyors so that they can all be specialists in that area, because the casework is getting greater, as you can see from the numbers. So yeah, we are. The other thing that we're doing is we're putting a case management system in. So for us, it's just as much about being able to monitor and evidence what we're doing as well. So as Nick said, you know, you've got to visit within 14 days, but then there's a report that has to be written that the tenant can understand, not too technical, you know, something that they can understand what's the issue and what have we identified, and then the work needs to be done. So we're getting ready for it. It's a system approach, it's additional resources, but it's also working with our contractors to make sure that they're resourced up to do it as well. So yeah, I think we've been working on this for quite a long time. So we've started to collect more data on damp and mould now for 2 years. Our contractor at every visit asks questions about whether customers have got issues with damp and mould. So we've been doing that for 2 years now and reporting on it. And we've got a pretty good success rate on the things that we deal with. I report it to our customer experience committee at every meeting, and the information also goes to our board. So we are sort of reporting on and monitoring it very closely. I'm not saying we're perfect, but we've certainly been, this isn't a shock to us. We knew it was coming and we've been building up to it.
And I think those stats of the reporting that you showed in terms of the mould really come through in a positive way to show that that work is working, which is good. Councillor Johnny Cope.
Thank you. Slightly different subject, something that Nick briefly mentioned in his opening remarks, which is around future development projects. Obviously, Surrey Heath as a council has an objective of helping create more homes to meet local need. That's something I think we all support, and we're eager to work with housing associations to deliver that. To that end, could you give us an update on any development projects that you have in the pipeline, and what can this council do to help you deliver more?
Thank you. Yes, we were having this discussion earlier. So at the moment, we have 2 sites where we are on. So the one site is in Guildford Road in Lightwater. So we're building 20 properties there. There's another site that we're about to, in the next few months, we hope to start on site, which is another 20 properties at Woodlands Lane in Windlesham. So that's one. And we got a couple of other, we call them 106 that we're looking at the moment, which are in Deepcart and Frinsley. Also, at the moment, it's very early stages. We're looking at an additional couple of sites, which we can't talk about them because they're not quite sort of, we agree the terms. So we are looking to, but for us, the difficulty is, and I'll give you the sort of the perspective of the National Housing Association, is the cost of land that makes the sort of development a lot more difficult, and particularly if you want to develop for social housing and affordable rent, which is our strategy. So we don't do outright sales, so all our developments. And where it works well is where we work with the council in partnership to identify sort of sites that we may work that sort of financial model to help that type of tenure. So will be interesting to have discussion to see if there's any potential sites that we could look at developing in that respect. So we are committed to do more in Surrey Heath, but because of the cost of land, it's harder to make the numbers work.
Thanks. No, that's perfectly makes sense. I think there should be an opportunity for some sort of partnership between the council and Axon on that type of things. Obviously, you both the projects you mentioned were around the sort of 20 unit mark. Is that the sort of project that you generally would look at, or does it vary in size from sort of 0 up to however many?
We do up to, I think at the moment it's about 180. But that normally happens, and again, it's where, for us at the moment, the sweet spot between land value and cost of building seems to be around sort of Peterborough, Cambridgeshire. So that's where that kind of works well. But we do have discussion with other local authorities. I'm meeting a local authority up north on Thursday morning, where they're really keen to just talk to us about how we can sort of make certain sites that the council own work if we're committed. What local authorities like about Accent is that we are just committed to deliver social housing and affordable rent. We don't do outright sell. So and our board, we're really committed as exec team to provide more affordable homes, and we will be absolutely delighted to have further conversations on some potential sites.
This is a flurry of hands. Councillor Kevin Thompson, Murray, Sean, Julie.
Thank you, Chair. And it's almost like myself and Councillor Cope were talking beforehand, because it's a fantastic segue, his question, because I wanted to talk to you around, not specifically about, but it leads on to my question, the Lightwater site. So I'm a Lightwater ward councillor, also sit on the Planning Applications Committee, so intimately familiar with that particular application. The MP shared details of the site, which was shared into the Lightwater Facebook group earlier this week. And there were a lot of disparaging comments from local residents about Accent. You know, they can't look after the houses they've got. Why do they want more? Why couldn't Surrey Heath sell it to someone else? I know that's not how it works, but that's the perception. And it struck me that there's clearly a bit of a PR challenge for Accent in the borough. So my question is it's not an operational one. It's more a question for you, Nick, as a relatively new chief exec who has experience. You know, I've just looked on LinkedIn, sort of 10 years at other similar organisations. Have you ever dealt with a challenged PR situation in the past, and how have you moved that forward, or what is your strategy to try and change the perception of Accent with some residents in the borough?
That's a very good question. So I have, and I think it's all about our presence in our local community. And we talked actually this morning, we had a meeting with our wider leadership team, and we talked about what was our brand, you know, what's our image. I'm aware, you know, my colleagues made me aware that there are some Facebook groups which are very active, and some of the comments are not very helpful. And I think we need to sort of understand what's the root cause, and I imagine a lot of that is probably the history around repairs. So we need to get the repairs right. But how do we close that loop? There's something around communication there, because I think people, they've been sort of tenants to Accent for about 10 years. They will still remember the old days, even if things have improved now. So if you're a new customer, it's easier to think, okay, this is the service I'm getting. But there is a communication, there is a PR piece of work that we need to do with the customer that probably still remember the old days of Accent, you know, when things are not working very well. So this is all really helpful feedback, and we'll go away and trying to work out with our comms team, with our engagement team. There is something about building trust again in our service, and how do we get the narrative out there? And I think we probably need to work with yourselves as well, because you are a great way of amplifying some of the good work that we're doing. So we'll take that away, but thank you for that feedback. That's really helpful.
Cool. Councillor Mary Rowlands.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm the councillor for St Michael's ward, which has quite a lot of social housing. And I'm very much aware of the public spaces that are around our social housing here. And there needs to be greater attention, I think, for those areas. Obviously, you just said about the previous experience of going back to the 40s and 50s. And it's a case of catching up. If you walk behind, for instance, in St Michael's Road and places like that, you'll find areas of considerable neglect. So there's a need to do something about those. There are on these estates also communal areas, again, which have sort of fallen out of time and possibly need to be looked at seriously. Does Access have a policy to renew these areas and to provide a realistic use of the space that's available, and how that could be dealt with? What policies does Accent have to renovate areas and improve areas like this and make the full use of them?
So we're talking about communal open spaces, and yeah. So there's a couple of things. First of all, we've got a new estates manager starting with 15 years experience in a similar organisation who we're hoping is going to come and have a fresh look at how we deliver those services. So I think that's really positive, and they're starting very soon. The other thing that we do is we provide our housing teams with something called an estate improvement budget. So each region gets an amount of money, and I think we've been quite our budget is just about to go to board actually in 2 weeks, I think, for the final sign-off. But and we've had to reduce the budget slightly, but this region does have a budget of about £25,000, and it is specifically for things like that. So as you can appreciate, we have our investment budgets for our homes. We're highly regulated, so we have to meet a decent home standard. We've got compliance with, all sorts of safety things, and the bits that aren't so regulated or that the budgets don't always apply to are things like the communal spaces, and have they really been looked at to do something different with? And this is what that budget is for. So it's to give the housing partners some money where they can talk to customers about what is it that we can do to improve this area, what does this need investment-wise. So we're absolutely committed to doing that. There's only a certain amount of resource over the next 12 months, but that doesn't mean that we can't programme things in. So if there are specific things, Lisa and I talked the other day about car parking in a certain area and, whether we can do something, for additional parking or parking that's not used, can we turn that into something different? So we will look at those things. And it's definitely the on-the-ground team that should be talking to customers about what do you want, what can we do to improve, and we can schedule those things in, absolutely. But I think this new estate manager is going to take a fresh look at how we deliver those services and maintain those open spaces.
Of course, Murray. Murray, quick on the microphone. Thanks.
Statement from the Minister about leaseholding and changes, and they're working towards changing in leasehold arrangements. I don't know, have we got tenants or people in this borough who are on leasehold arrangements? And how are you working on that?
We do. So we do have a number of leaseholders. We have right to buy, people that have bought their homes under the right to buy, and some of those, if they're flats, they are leaseholders. So you talking about the changes that basically they'll, rather than having a lease for 100 years, they'll actually own it outright. So there's no freehold, yeah. We do have a number of leaseholders and we will obviously work with whatever we're told will be the new regime, absolutely. But we do have a lot of leaseholders.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Murray. I've currently got Sean McDonald, Sean Garrett and Julie Hode in no particular order. Sean, do you mind if I bump you and Julie slightly, just as Sean McDonald hasn't asked the question yet, if that's okay? That's a yes. Councillor Sean McDonald.
Yeah, so can you hear me okay, Chair?
You're a little bit quiet, which is unusual for you.
Yeah, okay, I'll speak up. Thank you. Just a couple of things. You might want to sharpen your pencils here. First of all, thank you, Nick and Julie, for making your time available. Much appreciated. Going back to what Councillor Lee said earlier around the auditing of the contractors, I would just urge you to give us confidence that that's statistically valid, because 100% record can be a record of one audit, or it can be 100,000. So I think that's where Councillor Lee was heading with that point. The second thing is, I noticed on the data that you shared on antisocial behaviour, half of the reported cases were unclassified, which is a little bit odd given that there was about 25 categories shown on the slide. So perhaps you could just give us an insight into that. And then lastly, I'm a bit like Councillor Garrett. First of all, thank you to Jill for her support. I wish we weren't correspondents, but it's lovely that we are. But I'm a little bit concerned from a resident's perspective that when they take time off work, when appointments are missed, when there are repeated visits for the same issues, where does that lead them in terms of compensation? And whilst I understand that is perhaps something that you wouldn't want to do at the first instance, because life is like that sometimes. I think where you get multiple occurrences, then it should be considered. I'm just wondering what your policy is on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because yes, we do have issues where sometimes we're told that our contractors haven't turned up. We equally have issues where we make appointments and the customer's not there as well. So it's a difficult one about charging. Our preference is not to beat our contractors with a stick, I have to be honest. We do have penalties built into the contract. And we do use those penalties if we need to, particularly around repairs being done late, void properties, those sorts of things with rent loss. So, but we don't currently recharge them, but we would pay compensation if somebody had taken time off, a number of times. Even one time isn't good enough. So we would absolutely follow that through our complaints procedure, and we would compensate people. And we do have a compensation policy for things like that. And there have been times where we have asked our contractor to pay for that. So we do that, is the answer to the question. With regard to the ASB cases, I'm not going to try and guess what all of those are, but I will be really honest with you and say that I would imagine some of them are that the person that's entered them onto the system just hasn't categorised them as they should have done. So that will have happened. And then some that just don't neatly fit into the drop-down box of what's available. But I can get a bit of a taste and see what that is, if it would be helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have with us online Inspector Ryan Scott, who's the local borough commander. Ryan, if you do have a question that you do want to ask of Accent, you are very welcome to raise your hand and ask it if you want to, just so you're aware. I've got Sean Garrett next. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. I'm conscious of time, so it will be very brief. And that's not me. That is, though. 2 points, really. Housing partners, we've mentioned a few times. Residents say they don't know who their housing partners are, and I know they've changed, but I don't know who the housing partners are either. And I know you say they're on the website, but they used to have a list by road. If that's something that still exists, that would be really helpful. If it doesn't, then that's fine, but it would be really helpful to know. I think there was 3 on there for the old Dean. None of those names rang a bell with me, so it would be really helpful to have that, and I'm pretty sure the other ward councillors would appreciate that as well. ASB. I won't go into a specific case, but I'd like to thank you've got an apprenticeship young lady, and I won't mention her name in the chamber, who has been, okay, I'm sure you do. She's been working on a case within my ward, which I'm also sure you're aware of. I'd like to thank her because I know she's only an apprentice. That doesn't meant to come across as it is. She's training, but she's handled that one really, really well, and I know it's a really complex case, but I would like to speak about that as an overall. In that particular case, the resident is having a managed move. I get that. In my head, I wonder why the person that's being picked on is the one that's being moved. Okay, so I would like to understand that. Now, part of me thinks that might be because if the other one moves, they know where the other one was, so they can go back to them. I get that. So I would just want, and I know that there's a lot of people involved, there's multi-agencies involved in that, and I know Surrey Police have been involved in that, but I'd just like to get an idea, why is it the person that's being picked on that is the one that eventually gets moved?
I'm not going to go into that at all.
Sorry, I'll rephrase that. Not in this. Is that a general thing? As a general,
No.
but okay, fair enough. That was my question, so I didn't mean that case particularly. That's not fine. Thank you. You've answered my question.
That's one of the best answers ever.
No, that's fine.
So succinct.
To be fair, my question wasn't straight enough. My question wasn't straight enough for you.
Thank you, Johnny. I've got Julie Hode, Dave Hoff, Lisa Finnan-Cook, Mary Glowert. This has got to be one of the most popular and enjoyable sessions I have ever had at EP. Where we started to where we've got to, Julie, yourself and colleagues, it's a real big leap forward. And Lisa leading it from our side as well. It's a really great space to be, and not forgetting Nick and obviously all of the people that support you as well. So without further ado, Councillor Julie Hode.
Thank you, Chair. Alongside my councillor behind me, I'm one of the Lightwater councillors, so we're really pleased to see our 21 property development in Guildford Road. That's excellent. We knew it was coming. Glad to have you partnering. I have a question and a suggestion related to that. My question is, the 21 properties, I understand that approximately half will be shared ownership and the other half will be affordable housing. I'm actually not clear myself. What is affordable housing? Is it that the same as social housing? Are there differences? I guess my question is, because this is what's coming to me from my residents, can people on a housing list try to get one of those light water properties, or how will tenants be selected?
Okay, so the difference between affordable rent and social rent, affordable rent is a percentage of the market rent. So depending on the local housing allowance, it would be either 70 or 80% of a market rent. Social rents are much lower. We try to build as much social rent as we can because it is more affordable than affordable rent. But these are, so the shared ownership, you understand, is part rent, part buy, and the affordable rent. I would imagine, and I don't know what the deal is on this because I've not done the deal, but I would imagine that the first lets will be 100% nominations from Surrey Heath. So it will depend on the allocations policy of Surrey Heath. So we would take nominations from Surrey Heath into those homes, and I would imagine that that is based on priority, who's on the waiting list, what their need is. So yeah, we would take people from the list.
Excellent, thank you. So if people are on the list, they'll be processed as
Absolutely.
whoever the list is processed, but they need to be
Absolutely.
on the list to be considered. Thank you.
Yeah.
And my suggestion is, as a follow-on from the conversation about PR, I think we're about 18 months or so from those properties going live. It would be good perhaps for us to plan in, if yourselves, if your calendars are available, to come in and maybe do an opening thing and introduce them to our other residents. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I've got two councillors that haven't spoken this evening. Councillor Emma Jane McGrath from Windlesham and Chobham, and Councillor Valley White. Do either of you two have any questions? You're very welcome to jump the queue.
No, thank you very much. Most of my questions have been answered anyway.
I'll take that as a yes. Fantastic. Cool. Okay. Thank you. I've got Dave Hoff, Lisa, and Mary. Lisa, you haven't spoken yet. Can we give you the microphone?
Yeah, absolutely. I had promised myself that I was going to do a lot of listening rather than speaking tonight, but now that you've given me the opportunity, you may be sorry. So there's just a couple of things really that I wanted to say. First of all, thank you to you both for coming along to External Partnerships and for working so hard to keep our working relationship so positive. And I think that that's really good. But I really wanted to say thanks to the members of this committee, because I think the questions that have been asked tonight have been really well thought out and have given really good fodder for good debate and conversation tonight. And I think that that's fantastic. A couple of things that I just wanted to pick up on. Jill is going to have a halo over her head, isn't she? I just wanted to give her some recognition as well, because a lot of things come in through my inbox that I don't ever really need to get involved in, because Jill picks them up very, very swiftly and deals with them quickly. And I think that that is hugely beneficial for us as councillors to be able to send something her way and get a quick response, because it allows us to support our residents, which is what we all want to do in a speedy manner. So please pass on my thanks as well. We talked earlier about the benefit of the workshop we had with Ian Williams, and I'm delighted that we're on the cusp of confirming a workshop with SureServe. I have to try and build that into my brain, I know, because I think that will be really helpful. We saw how fantastic the change was almost immediately with Ian Williams, and I would hope that we would be able to get the same sort of response from SureServe as well. So yeah, if we could get that confirmed as soon as possible, that would be fantastic. I too would be very interested in some audit details, because that 100% gives me a bit of an alarm bell, like other members have said. So I won't labour that point. And I suppose I wanted to note that I see real progression in terms of not just the day-to-day. You mentioned 70,000 repairs, which I think is an extraordinary number, and considering the number of complaints that come through our inboxes, it kind of puts those into perspective, really. What I am really intrigued about, though, is some of the long-standing complex cases. And I know the last time you were here, we looked at the numbers surrounding those. Could you maybe tell us whether you feel that they have been addressed in the majority, or if we still have quite a number of those outstanding? So that would be really interesting to hear about. And the final point, I'm really delighted that we had a quick chat beforehand regarding data, didn't we? And it's been something that we've raised loads of times about getting Surrey Heath specific data, and Nick reckons he can sort it. So I think that if by the time we come back to the next external partnerships, if we have that data being shared, that would just be absolutely fantastic. So that's really it. So it's really, my only outstanding question is the complex, long-standing cases and how we're doing in that regard.
I haven't looked at those specifically, so I don't want to make any. I will come back to you if that's okay. I'll talk to Adam. I do know that they've made huge progress in this region and things are much, much better. And I'm not aware of any issues, but I would rather just go and double check. Some of the data that I presented tonight was just for Surrey Heath. So on the SureServe, that was just about Surrey Heath then. So yeah.
That's brilliant. So more of that would be ideal. But no, thank you so much for coming.
I'll let Nick tell the team.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be thrilled. But no, thank you for coming and for your input. And it is really clear to me that each time we come together, we're seeing progress. And I think that's been echoed in the chamber this evening. So it's not just me saying it. So that's refreshing, isn't it? So please feed back to the whole team that we appreciate the continued efforts for our residents.
Thank you.
Nick, did you want to come in?
First of all, thank you for that feedback, and we'll work to build on that. In terms of the data, as Julie said, some of those figures were just for Surrey Heath. Julie mentioned that we got a transformation project at the moment. It's looking at all our systems and how the data is being collected. So yeah, I think it might need a little bit of manual intervention, but I think we'll do a lot better next time.
Brilliant, that's really positive. So I've got Councillor Dave Hoff and then Councillor Mary Glowett.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to come back and just learn a bit more about the proactive maintenance programme and how it works. Just example came to the top of my head, neighbouring property having their windows replaced sort of today, but the property had been previously lived in by a long-term tenant and nothing had been updated, and from just anecdotal evidence they were saying that she didn't want it. So I was just wondering, like, A, what's the sort of standard process of maintenance, and do you have many cases where the tenants refuse those upgrades and are happy living in the sort of 1970s?
So I think in the south region, now bear in mind most of the properties are here in Surrey Heath. I think this year we had 152 refusals of planned works. So it does happen, yes it does. So the way that it works is we work on components, so kitchens, bathrooms, roofs, heating, replacement boilers, etc. And they have a life cycle. So the government sets a decent home standard, our regulator, and that's how we plan our programmes. So a kitchen would last 20 years, a bathroom 30 years, those sorts of things. A roof we would look at after 60. It might not necessarily need doing at that time, and then we would monitor it. So that's how it works. It's not a particularly hard standard to meet, to be fair, because but they're looking at the decent home standard at the moment. So windows, for example, I think are 25 years. We would replace them after 25 years. Of course, some fail before the end of their natural life, and we would go and obviously replace them beforehand if they needed to. But some people do refuse work. What we tend to do, there's some things that you can't not do. So people have to have a heating system. So there's certain things that have to be done, and we would have to really force that issue, but you'd be surprised. But equally, some of our elderly customers, they might not want a new kitchen. You know, they might not want to be bothered. Their kitchen might be perfectly fine and they're happy with it. And we would respect those wishes as much as possible. We do try and persuade people to fall in because, as you can imagine, when we come and do a street of kitchens or roofs or whatever, it's much better to do them all at the same time than have pepper potted have to come back. But if people are really kind of just don't want the work, then we would revisit 5 years later, normally, depending on what it is. So that's how it works. Or when it becomes vacant, then we would do it all then. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Mary Gow.
Thank you. Mine's a question about whether you still have a policy of ripping up carpets and flooring when tenants change over. I've been to quite a few tenants' houses, and they've had just floorboards, sometimes with nails sticking up, and they've often said to me, well, we'd actually rather there was some carpeting left, even if it was not that good, rather than have to wait for having to have, or get somebody to actually basically get them new carpets, because they obviously can't afford them. So have you changed your policies on that at all?
So really positively, I think what we do now at every void is we do carpet bedrooms now. So that was something that came from customer feedback. So when we relet a property, we do carpet the bedrooms. If a carpet or flooring is in really good condition, then we would leave it. But if it is not, we would take it up. And if we suspected there might be needles in there or something, there are some health and safety things that we would cover off. So if it's really, really good quality and we think that it would do somebody a good turn, we would leave it. But the majority does get lifted. And often to do work as well, so yeah.
When I bought my house, all the carpets were in there. Nick.
Just want to add that we do have a small hardship fund. So if someone is really, really struggling, because I remember a few years ago going to this property, I was shadowing a housing officer doing a tenancy audit. And the property was new when the tenant moved in, and there's a mother with 2 young children. And 2 years on, she was still having sort of concrete floor with young children running around their property, and it just felt, it's just, we wouldn't accept that for anyone in our family. So I do think that some people are really struggling, and if they are, there's a small sort of hardship fund, so we should try to help. So through our housing partners, let us know and we'll see what we can do. But I agree with Julie. I think where the carpet's in a good condition, we'll leave them. But otherwise, they become a bit of a health and safety issue, so we have to remove them.
Cool. Councillor Mary Rowlands.
Can I just ask, I know that the right to buy has been limited, but it still exists, doesn't it? Have you noticed any real difference in the legislation that's been passed as far as right to buy and how you're managing the estates?
So we do still have customers that have the protected right to buy because they've been tenants for such a long time, and when they did the transfer, they kept that right, so they kept that protection, so they can. We haven't had many right to buys in the last 12 months. The numbers are really, really small, but obviously over the years we've had a lot of people do the right to buy. There's also, I mean, there've been pilots, haven't there? But I'm not sure it's going to be something that will come back.
Let's come back. If you're going to be involved in any new build, obviously the question about right to buy does arise, doesn't it? Do you feel this is a limiting factor in what you can do as far as knowing that that option exists going into a new build situation?
No.
Thank you, Mary. I've got Sean McDonald, unless that's a residual hand up. I've got Nick Stevens and Lisa to finish up. Councillor Sean McDonald.
Thank you. Just a couple of things. So I too celebrate the new houses in Lightwater, and thank you to Cherise for keeping us updated. Our challenges are potentially on the increase, and it sounds from this evening as if potentially your challenges are decreasing. However, we would still like to work with you on additional sites for social and affordable housing. We have an obligation to achieve best value, but best value for our borough is not always just financial, it can be social as well. So just wanted to make the point that we wish to continue that dialogue around opportunities within the borough for our young people, for our key workers, and for other people that need them.
Thank you. Nick Stevens.
I did have a minor question. It's a very minor one, and then really it was just a general commentary, if that's okay. You flashed up the complaints analysis in one of your slides, and my question is probably the same one that I'd ask our own organisational design people, which is, what's the ratio of upheld, dismissed or partially upheld complaints? So if there's any data around that you can provide, I think that would be very helpful. Excuse me. Man flu is a terrible thing. It was just to express thanks because Julie and I have been in our substantive roles for the best part of 3 years. We started at the same time, and I think the relationship and the dialogue has been really positive throughout. And the same with many of your colleagues, some now sadly who have left, but also some of the new ones coming forward, like Rob as well, where we hope we continue to have that really positive relationship. And it was also to express thanks to Nick, because starting on your first day as the Chief Executive of Accent and coming to Surrey Heath, and being bombarded with questions by a very enthusiastic portfolio holder and an officer that just came along because he likes a bit of a field trip, was really reassuring for us. And we sincerely hope that positivity continues, because we are really eager to work in partnership with you from here on in.
With that, Lisa, would you like to close out the item, and then that way no one else can come back? Because it's been a absolutely barnstormingly successful session, I've got to say, one of our best.
Thanks, Rob. Well, I said most of what I was going to say when you invited me to speak the last time, because I thought it was going to be my only chance. But I think what's really clear is that we've seen continuous progress, which I think is fantastic. There's been times where things have progressed quite speedily, and then times when it's been felt very slow. But in any case, it is progress nonetheless. And I suppose, thank you for that, and thank you for all the efforts that you've put into making sure that is secured for residents here in Surrey Heath. It's incredibly important that we're meeting basic needs, and you play a key role in making sure that those housing needs are met. So thank you very much. But it would be very remiss of me to wind up without saying there's always room for more. So I hope by the next time we come back, we'll be able to talk about some progress with on the heating side. That would be fantastic. So let's make that a focus going forward, if you're willing. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you again for coming. Obviously, as you can tell, we're always happy to hold your feet to the fire, but happy to praise when things meet and exceed expectations. I think firm but fair is where we always like to land things. Just on a final stat, I see from the 2023-24 accounts, there's 3,134 homes in Surrey Heath, and obviously another 2021 to join that, and hopefully many more to follow for the future. So thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is going to be with Inspector Ryan Scott for a matter on an item on policing. You are very welcome to stay. If you want to stay for a little bit and then peel away, that's absolutely fine. If you've got long journeys, those journeys are very important. You can still listen live on YouTube. Not a problem. We'll just take a few moments pause just while you gather things. Ryan, good evening. Thank you for your patience as we went through the item on accent housing. I hope you found it of interest. I think dialing in from home is a very good strategic move. We always welcome people in the chamber, but we equally welcome people dialed in. I get to look up to you, which is probably a good thing, I think, based on some of my colleague comments. So the floor is quite literally yours. Enjoy.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight. I've had some family sickness. I've been looking after my daughter the last couple of days. And yeah, that's going to be a tough one to follow, accent. So I apologise in advance to everybody who now has to listen to me. Let me share my screen and turn my camera off.
Family always comes first in this world, Ryan, so we completely understand. Family always comes first.
Thank you. Bear with me. Okay, I'm not going to be able to see anybody's hands or anything during the presentation, so I'll answer questions at the end unless anybody has anything they desperately need to ask, and then obviously just interrupt. Can everybody see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, bright and clear. Team, if you do want to sort of interject, rather than going through me, just say your name as you interject for a question, but obviously keep them succinct to the slide at hand.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll introduce myself first. So I am Inspector Ryan Scott. I've been on the team since January. I have approximately 14 years experience in policing. I've most recently come from Woking as a neighbourhood sergeant, where I was in post for 2 years. Before that, I did about a year on Waverley SNT as a sergeant, and then most of my career has been split between response as a sergeant and a PC, and some time in CID. So I've got quite a varied background in policing. So this is the current makeup of the team that we have in Surrey Heath. So we have obviously myself. I have 2 sergeants who work with me, one covering the north side of Surrey Heath, one covering the south. And we have a dedicated NSO and PCSO for each area as well. We have had a couple of new additions to the team. So we have a new PCSO, Naz Svintak, who comes across from Woking. She has approximately 20 years experience as a PCSO. So she's very knowledgeable, very up to date and clued up on what she's doing, and is a great asset to the team. We also have a couple of new PCSOs, so Molly Rhodes, who's just come out of her tutorship, and Chelsea Godber. So they're both new to the team. They've just been tutored, but they have their respective areas and they are now out and about. So ensure you say hello if you see them out and about. So some statistics. For the rolling year, there's been a 3.3% increase in our solved outcome rates just for Surrey Heath, which is 19 more crimes in total. We have had an extra 104 crimes reported compared to the previous year during this statistical period. But since the 1st of January 2025 to the 11th of February, when I put this together, we had 22 less crimes reported compared to the same period in 2024. All crime types have reduced, apart from domestic incidents, which have increased and are steadily increasing across the board. It's not just a Surrey Heath issue where we're seeing the increase in domestic incidents. We've had the Joint Neighbourhood Survey, which does show that we have had a decrease in confidence in policing in general, but in Surrey Heath there has been a drop most recently in Q3 compared to Q2 in the confidence in the police in Surrey Heath. That is something that I am obviously working closely with my team to try and increase. We obviously don't want a decrease in the confidence in policing. We want everybody to feel that they can come to us, talk to us and report their issues to us, and that we're actually going to listen and try and do something with those concerns. Obviously, we're not going to be able to with every single concern that people come to us with, but we do try our best. We've also had a report on what the public priorities are. So this is, again, this data is just for Surrey Heath, but it's reflective across the board for Western Surrey, so including Guildford, Waverley and Woking. The issues remain pretty much the same for the top 10. So antisocial driving or speeding is a top priority for the public. Antisocial and inconsiderate parking is always up there. Unwanted phone calls or visits to the house, litter, burglary, vehicle crime. They're the top ones that we generally see year on year being reported through to us as the biggest issues for the residents of Surrey Heath, and as I say, the surrounding boroughs as well. And we are obviously taking this on board, and we're setting up some antisocial driving and speeding campaigns coming up. So I have a PCSO who's dedicated to look at the statistics that we have around antisocial driving, where the hotspot areas are that we can deal with, and then we are going to set up some proactive operations to try and deal with that antisocial driving or speeding, working closely with partners within the police, like the community safety teams and the Speed Watch partners as well. So this just moves on to that. So this is the vehicle ASB reports from the 1st of November 24 to the 31st of January when the data was update. You can see from the larger dots, that's where we have the most reports of the vehicle ASB. You can see a lot of them take place on the M3, which unfortunately as a local SNT, we wouldn't be able to deal with because that is a fast road and you have to have specific training to do that. So that's not something we can get involved with. But obviously you then have the larger dots on Windlesham, Deep Cut, out towards Mitchett, and we can look at proactive patrols and proactive operations in those areas, as I say, to help combat the vehicle ASB. So the casualty reduction officer is someone that we'll be working with in relation to that, and that is someone that also comes along and helps with the school enforcement on the parking issues that we have around the schools, which I know is quite a big issue within Surrey Heath, especially with a certain couple of schools. And from the 20th of January through to the 14th of February, this is just the statistics on what he's issued and the times that he's been in Surrey Heath. He's not dedicated to Surrey Heath. He works across the whole of Western Surrey. So this is just on the days when he can get into Surrey Heath. So he's done 24 speeding tickets, which is for 40 mile an hour and above, a summons for speeding, someone driving 57 miles an hour and a 30 limit, which is obviously quite excessive, 2 seatbelt tickets, 3 mobile phone tickets, 2 eyesight tests conducted, an arrest for drug driving, 5 miscellaneous offences, 4 vehicles were seized for licence and insurance offences, and then 2 FPNs for the school zigzag enforcement. ASB legislations that have been utilised, so I've got 2 different ones here. So this goes from the 1st of October 24 to the 1st of January 25. So as a team, we issued 11 community protection warnings, 2 community protection notices, which are the step up from community protection warnings, and there's actually a power of arrest that goes along with the community protection notices. So if they are breached, we can arrest those people for the breaches, and we can then move on to other orders such as CBOs and further ones from there. There were no full property closures, 5 partial closures orders, 4 closure warning letters issued, 6 ASB level 2 letters and 0 ASB level 3 letters. So again, the ASB level 3 follows on from a level 2. There are 5 levels in total before you look at moving on to other legislations that are utilised. And then these are from the 1st of January 25 to the 14th of February, again, when this has moved on since. We have issued some more, but it's just when the data was up to date for us then. So in that time period, quite a short time period, we've actually issued 11 community protection warnings. At the time, there were 2 more being drafted. They've been issued. So in total, we've issued 13 with a couple more being drafted now. 1 community protection notice, A full property closure order is still in the case building stage, and we have one partial closure in place at the moment. We've issued 5 closure warning letters, which we are following up on. Obviously, if those closure warning letters, we have breaches or we have further reports of ASB, we then look at either a partial or a full closure for those properties. 22 ASB 2 letters and 1 ASB 3 letter. Our quarterly preventions, which is the areas we focus on for 2025, February to April has been fraud, cybercrime, drugs and business crime. And then May to June will be road safety, burglary, violence and violence against women and girls. July to October is going to be ASB, business crime and vehicle crime. And then November to January will be burglary, drugs, violence and violence against women and girls. A lot of these are set in date by the National Crime Agency and other departments outside of Surrey. So these will be operations that will be running nationally, not just within Surrey, but obviously we do run smaller operations in relation to these across the time period as well. So at the weekend just gone, we had quite a large operation, which I'll come on to at the end, which was around drugs and road crime. So the road safety would have fallen into that operation that we ran. We also had what we call behavioural detection officers out in town, which was looking out for those who commit violence and violence against women and girls. So even though these are set for the quarterly focuses, we do obviously look at them in other times of the year as well. It's not just set in stone that we only deal with those crimes or have operations in relation to those types of offences during that time. So the priority that we've had recently, one of our main priorities was we had quite a large increase in the ASB in town centre with some serious offences taking place during that time. So from that, we've had a dedicated team in the town. We had over 3 weekends, we utilised dispersal orders in the town, I'm sure everybody's aware, where we had dispersal orders on for a 48 period. We had officers dedicated to the town for that 48 period. We also utilised serious violence reduction funding to get extra patrols in the town for what we call Op Chariot. And we also had special constables out with us as well. That's had quite a dramatic effect. I think those 3 weekends where we had the dispersals on, a lot of that is the ASB letters that we've issued have come from those weekends. We actually, any child that was dispersed from the town, we then visited their home address in the following days. An officer would attend, speak to the child and the parents and issue them with an ASB letter, either a 2 or a 3, depending on the behaviour. And we also worked with some of the local businesses. If they wanted us to, we would issue civil banning letters on their behalf as well to the child involved in the ASB. As I say, it's had quite a dramatic impact on it. Over the last few weekends, we haven't had as many reports as we were getting, and especially over the school holiday periods, we had very little reports of ASB in the town. Obviously, I'm not under the impression that it's completely gone. I know there is still going to be ASB within the town. So ongoing, we have some work ongoing. So I'm working with Children's Social Services to set up a youth safe space where we've had funding for 3 days for the Rainbow Cafe to be used as a safe space for youths to come and speak to Children's Social Services and the police and either report crime or talk about some issues that they are experiencing, or just to come and generally have a chat and interact with officers in a way that they wouldn't normally be able to. I have meetings with 10PIN, which I've already have, and the Atrium set up, looking at license conditions, if there's any changes, how we can assist them, changes with their security teams, utilising body-worn video, the changes that they can make in the 10PIN and the Atrium to help us stop the ASB issues that they are receiving. As you can see, from the 1st of November 24 through to 31st of January, a lot of that ASB in town. So the red dots is the ASB personal, which is obviously the children or adults involved in ASB. A lot of it does focus around the atrium and 10-pin area, which is where we have seen the large increase, or where we saw the large increase. This is some good work that we had on Friday evening. So Operation Westlake, we ran a large operation which involved approximately 50 police officers from obviously Surrey Heath neighbourhoods team. We also had some traffic colleagues out. We had dedicated coaching units, which is where the probationary officers are trained. And we worked with special constables. We had an operation running where we had a stop site set up on the A30, and then we had several proactive vehicles out and about as well, focusing on those that use our road networks to commit crime. Again, this fits in with the antisocial driving and the speeding that we often see. So in total, we stopped over 60 vehicles. We had 5 arrests on the night for offences of possession of drugs, drug driving, and we arrested a member of an OCG for possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. And he had also previously been deported and was in the country illegally. So that was a good arrest. We issued 2 community resolutions for possessions of drugs. 20 people were issued with process for traffic offences, which varied, and we seized 6 vehicles for no insurance. So that's just from one operation that we had those results. We are looking at putting that operation on quite regularly, possibly on a smaller scale, because we won't always be able to get 50 officers. So it'll be on a smaller scale, but we're hoping that we'll still be able to get similar results, and we'll move it around the borough, so it won't just be focused on the A30. And that's the end of my presentation. So I'll stop sharing. And then take questions when you're ready.
Thank you. I've got Johnny Cope, Julie Hode, Sean Garrett, Murray Rowlands. Johnny Cope.
Thanks, and thank you, Ryan, for that presentation. You mentioned the issue of sort of antisocial parking outside schools. I'm a councillor for St Paul's Ward, and there's a significant problem there outside Crawley Ridge School. And whenever I meet with the school, what they tell me is that when your colleagues or enforcement officers come down and are there, people see them and they don't park. But obviously you can't be there every day. So is there anything else you can do sort of strategically to sort of stem the problem long term? Because as I say, if there's a police officer there, people won't park there, but there's not very often going to be a police officer there. So strategically, what can be done to improve the situation?
Unfortunately, from a policing perspective, very little. It's something that we could raise up onto partnership meetings. I'm sure it's been there before, and I know the council are fully aware of the issues that are taking place. But from a policing perspective, a long-term approach, we can work with the council and the school to look at ways that we can tackle this. But as you say, we can't be there every day, and as police, we can only deal with the issues there and then when we're there. We can't look at dealing with them retrospectively. And as I say, from a policing perspective, there's very little we can put in place to prevent it from happening without the council's input or the school's input as well. So we can work with those to help tackle it, but it's not something that we can do just as a single agency.
I'd like to just chime in there, because I think the challenge around poor driving and parking around schools is one of those perennial issues that's been around for a very long time. And I think Johnny raises a really valid point there. I think, what else can the wider group do to support the police, I think, is a key one. I know certainly I was fortunate enough to go out with the police before Christmas on this, and hear some real horror stories of I think there was one incident where the person rocked up at school, parked on the yellow wigwag lines while on their mobile phone, and then was a little bit upset when they got 6 points on their licence for the privilege, which I thought was slightly strange. I guess the question is it's about intervening earlier, isn't it? It's about how we can reach out to those parents much earlier on. And I guess the schools do ultimately control those comms channels.
Yeah.
You know, Surrey County Council control the enforcement on the roads when it's parking on inappropriate lines. The police control the piece around driving with a mobile phone, parking on the highway, obstructing it. But I guess the primary point of engagement is actually through the schools, and I guess it's how we can try and nudge the schools. I know certainly a school near mine, I won't name them, but my understanding is they've removed the parents from picking up and dropping off on site because of the fights that were breaking out, which then just pushes it further out. And it's thinking, well, how do we encourage slightly better behaviour? Because, I mean, these people have produced the next generation, yet they're not necessarily behaving as we'd want the next generation to be. Although on the flip side, 98% of parents are awesome. It's that small minority that's frustrating. So I think there is perhaps something around social media and when those 6 points happen, whether there's something we can link in with not just the police but with the borough council and sort of push it out on social media. And if I think those with the social media reach work together, and maybe within one of the priorities there is privately we work together and say, okay, across the political divides, across the authority divides, we say, okay, we'll push this out as a topic for a week with amazing parents, thank you, but by the way, these naughty ones, if you know someone doing it, can you nudge them to not do it? Maybe there's something there. Sorry for jumping in there, and thank you for humouring me.
That's okay. I mean, we could look at, so my daughter's school, as every school does, has parking issues, school pick-up and drop-off times. One of the things they do is they have approached one of the local public houses and a couple of businesses to say, during those times, can parents use your car park as a parking area, and then they can walk to and from the school. It's only a short distance. And I think that's been very widely accepted, and it's something that has cut down on the amount of traffic that is in the road, because it is quite a small road as well. So that's something that we could approach with the schools to say, if they approached local businesses or areas that have larger parking areas that they could use during those times for the parents to park at. So that's something that I can take away as well.
Really appreciate that, thank you. And perhaps there's maybe something, I don't know, maybe there is something specific to reflect on for this committee's work programme, to pull something together as a sort of a small working group, not about the big lift, but the joining of dots, as it were, that community signposting piece. It's a thought at this stage, Nick. I'm not committing anyone to anything. I know the committee seems quite enthusiastic to it, but I always like to look to you for capacity first, because I don't like to set people up for a fall. So perhaps leave you to reflect on that and come back in a week or two's time to committee with thoughts in email. Thank you very much, Nick. So amazing, Johnny. I've got Julie, Sean, Murray. I've done myself. I jumped to the front. I'm so sorry. I've done a Sean Garrett there. Have I missed anyone so far? Anyone online? No, not so far. Julie Hode.
Thank you, Chair. A quick question about, was it Operation Westlake? Was that?
Yes.
So it said you stopped 60 vehicles, and off the back of that, there was an impressive number of things that you found. That seems really, I'm assuming more than 60 vehicles went by. So just for context, you stopped 60 vehicles out of a total traffic volume of what? Is that like 1 in 100 vehicles, or?
I honestly would not be able to answer that. Okay. Obviously, it was on the A30. It was during quite a busy period on a Friday evening.
Yep, lots of people got excited about it. Yep. yeah,
I can imagine. But we had my sergeants were on the stop site. They've both got quite a lot of experience in the police, so they know what they're looking for and what they're not looking for.
Yeah.
And so one of those was always at the entrance of the stop site, pulling vehicles in. So they were using their professional discretion on which vehicles would get pulled in and which ones wouldn't. And if they missed some, we then had the proactive cars to then go and pick them up afterwards.
Yeah, thank you. That's I assumed it was
Sorry, I can't give you actual
I assumed it
statistics on
was-
how many were and weren't.
on a targeted, selected basis. I was just curious as
Yeah.
to what that 60 vehicles represented as the total flow of traffic through at that period. But if you don't know, you don't know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I decided to collect 100 regs while out and about a couple of weeks ago and ran them all through to see if they were taxed. 5% weren't out of 100. That to me seemed quite a high percentage. I mean, I did tend to write down the ones that looked a bit more dodgy, so using my my layman's brain, as it were. But 5% seemed to be quite high. I don't know where it tends to land with untaxed vehicles.
It's generally around that. We find, yeah, it's quite high, but you'd be surprised at how many aren't insured as well. That's something else that we see probably more than taxed.
Wow. Wow, but 5% seemed quite high to me, so even higher for uninsured. Okay, some councillors are smiling at me as if I'm naive. I've always paid for my car insurance. I've got Councillor Sean MacDonald and Councillor Murray Rowlands. Councillor Sean MacDonald.
I'm assuming that's me, not the leader.
It's easily confused. You're both called Sean. My apologies. And you start with almost the same letter. That's my defence.
Thank you, Chair. Nice to meet you, almost in person, Ryan.
Yes.
I've got a few
Yeah,
emails.
nice to hear.
So, firstly, I tend to write notes down as I'm seeing a presentation. I've done this. I'll reverse this around town issues. For one, I was in town the weekend before you issued your what do you call them? I can't remember.
Dispersal orders.
Dispersal orders. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. I actually took my daughter. I was actually in Tenpin on that day, and I have never seen it so busy. But then I realised it was. I used the word. There was a lot of. I won't use the word in the chamber. No, I won't use the word in the chamber. I was flabbergasted. Let's leave it there. And actually, I spent a lot of time in town. The following weeks after your dispersal order, it was a lot better. So whatever you did certainly made a difference. But my daughter felt, my 13-year-old daughter, who's almost as tall as me, was really intimidated by it. And when I commented on it, the amount of children that were in town, I have never seen so many children in town, and it was almost like packs. So I don't know what the cause of that was, but certainly whatever you've done at the time has made a difference. My second note on here is, am I right in seeing that PCSO Hills is back on the Old Dean? Is that correct? Because she's on your list. She was on maternity leave. So has she come back?
She's still on maternity.
Okay, but she's still on your list. That's fine.
Yeah, so she'll be back shortly, and she will be on the Old Dean still.
Okay. I look forward to seeing her back. She was instrumental in the issues we had at the co-op and the shoplifting we had there. So I look forward to having her back. My question is around antisocial driving. Driving, not parking. Around the schools, and especially specifically, I have had, as has our MP, a dialogue with the crossing lady on the Upper College Ride position, where just before you get to the shops, before Christmas, she was highlighting to me that she'd seen a number of drivers driving past without their seatbelts on more than one occasion. And she wasn't quite sure. She said she'd reported it to the police, and I don't know if anything got done. More recently, she's been in communication, and she's highlighting antisocial driving again. Going back to the points highlighted by my colleagues, one of the things I noticed when I was a school governor, I actually stood in a road once and choreographed the cars around, and the amount of abuse you get trying to control these people. These are parents who probably live around the corner and they don't need to be driving anyway. But what I did experience was, if you teach the children that their parents are being antisocial, then that feeds back to the parents in most cases. Because it's the children that are in the cars with their parents. It's the children that are there when they maybe get a little bit abusive. So I've tried to get the school crossing team, which I know is run by county, but maybe if there's a join up with your officers as well, that maybe we should be doing, and I know it's difficult, assemblies to the children in the school to say, look, this is what the issues are. Maybe we need to make sure the parents are driving properly. It's not just the parking, it's the driving as well. So maybe that's a way of joined up thinking, is actually speaking in assemblies to the children, who hopefully then feed that back to the parents. Thank you.
Yep, I'll take that away. Something we can look at.
I think this idea is getting legs, isn't it, Nick? Are you thinking of trying to maybe get Sean and Johnny and myself in little pedal cars? One of us can have the police one, and one of us can be the naughty parent.
I'm not going to put my mic on and respond.
Oh, he's refusing to respond, officer. Councillor Murray Rowlands.
Thank you, Chair. Someone contacted me yesterday who lives in the in St Michael's, in the centre of St Michael's. They're complaining for 2 successive nights, speeding vehicles coming up and down their road. He had referred it to another councillor who referred it on to me. I think this is the experience of parts of St Michael's, the inner city area, if you like, of St Michael's. The terrace, you get cars racing well above the speed limit. I know it's come top of your list of activities, but it certainly is quite serious and is continuing. I mean, it's just an observation. I know that it's top of your list, but it doesn't seem to be slackening off. And of course, as the weather improves, you've got to get more of these sort of what you might call boy races coming up and down our roads and trying to do something about it.
Thank you, Murray. Ryan?
Yeah, so obviously we are fully aware that antisocial driving is a big issue. For that particular issue, I can make contact with a local PC or PCSO and ask them to pay particular attention to that area when they are on duty in the evenings. And at night, if we could have an idea of what roads and what times, that would be handy. Obviously, you can email it through to myself, and then I can forward that onto the team for them to have a look at. With regard to ASB driving, there are certain ways that we can deal with it. So if we witness it, so we see them there and then we catch them doing it, we can issue them what we call a Section 59 warning. If they get issued a second Section 59 warning on either the vehicle or the driver, so even if the driver is driving a different vehicle or the vehicle is being driven by somebody else, and they subsequently get a second Section 59, the vehicle they are in is seized there and then. So that's the way that we try and deal with it. And obviously, if they're committing any traffic offences, they'll get tickets for those. So we do try and deal with it robustly when we can, but unfortunately, we can't be everywhere all the time. So we rely on the reports coming through to us of where and when it's happening, the times, the locations, and we will try and deal with it as robustly as we can.
I've got Councillor Bob Rakes. Do I have anyone online? And I've got, remind me how to say your surname so I get it right first time.
Nick Apatry.
And I've got Nick Apatry. So, Councillor Bob Rakes.
Just a quick question that I was having trouble with the detail on the slides. Just checking that those are going to be, that's going to be distributed to us. The presentation slides.
Yes, it can be, yeah.
Thank you.
And I've also got Nick Stevens as well. Oh, and Mary Glower. This is, Ryan, you've delivered another outstanding performance. I mean, I think that we might have to have a vote on whether it was the police or accent was the better of the two. Fantastic. Nick.
Thank you, Chair. Ryan, thank you for your presentation. And obviously, I've sort of looked at the ASB slides. I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do as a housing association to work more in partnership with yourselves in terms of tackling some of this antisocial behaviour? And I'm not sure what the history is, whether there's some contacts between Accent and I know in other parts of the countries, if we go to antisocial behaviour, normally there is someone that we can go there in sort of a local police and we can work together. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously as I say, I've only been in place in Surrey Heath since January, but I have found that my ASB coordinator, Dan Burrell, has a very good working relationship with partners in Accent, and so do most of the team. They know who to go to speak to about their properties that they need some assistance with. This isn't going to be a dig in any way. The issues we have found is that when the not always, but sometimes when the properties are Accent housing properties, and there's antisocial behaviour or there's looking at possibilities of closures, we have found that it is often left down to the police to actually action and do anything about it, whereas it could be dealt with by Accent first off through their ASB policies. We have often found that it's almost like, well, the police are involved, so they can lead. So I think a bit more upfront action from Accent would be helpful. But as far as the working relationship goes, as I say, we've always had a good one. I know Dan's had several meetings with colleagues from yourselves.
Nick, perhaps if you're the bridge between Nick and Ryan behind the scenes, then Ryan, if you've got any specific cases, perhaps if you bowl them in Nick's direction at the appropriate time, then perhaps that's quite a good case study for your window into the organisation as you're new in place. I've got Mary Glower and Nick Stevens. Who would like to go first? Oh, Mary Glower.
Right, thank you, Nick. Mine was about the fact that you said domestic incidents were increasing throughout the nation. I mean, you can do dispersal orders, things like that, for antisocial behaviour. Is there anything you can actually do to stop this increase, or what strategies you use?
So the increase, we think, is twofold. So there's obviously been an increase in reporting because of the push that we've had to try and encourage people to report. And obviously partner agencies are getting better at realising what's domestic abuse and what should be reported. So we are seeing an increase in general reporting, but we're also getting better as a force at again, realising the different domestic offences. So if we have another offence and there's something mentioned whilst they're talking to police that's a domestic incident, maybe in the past it hasn't always been picked up, but now 9 times out of 10 those incidents are being picked up and obviously being investigated from there. So that's the twofold increase that we have seen. So it's, as I say, the reporting because of the push around making people realise when to report domestic incidents, but also us picking up on them as well. We do have what we call domestic violence protection orders that our colleagues in the domestic abuse team utilise. So they are generally used in incidents where there's been a domestic incident take place. You don't necessarily have the required evidence to prosecute the suspect, or there may be a lack of support from the victim. But we can put in place, so we can apply to the court for a domestic violence protection order, which bans the suspect from going back to the address for 28 days. And then if they do and they breach that, we can look at arresting them for that offence. So that is one way that we do try and protect people, and that often gives the victim a bit of breathing space to realise the situation they're in. And a lot of the time, we do actually find that it's quite positive, and they do actually then either want to pursue the allegations or they end up leaving that person, which protects them in the long run. So we do find them very good. They are very good pieces of legislation that we utilise quite often.
Thanks very much for that.
Thank you.
I've got Nick Stevens. Have we got anyone else after Nick? Anyone online? Nope. And Nick.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to come back on the Community Safety Partnership discussions first, and then I wanted to ask Ryan a question around data. So the first thing to say in terms of the partnership working that we do with the police and with colleagues like Accent, we have what's called the Community Harm and Risk Management Meeting, useful acronym of CHARM. where a lot of individual cases are discussed, and we work in partnerships to try and find the most appropriate agency to resolve that issue, whether that be through the tenancy agreement or whether that be the police or our community safety team dealing with it through a community protection notice or other powers that we have. One of the things that we are looking at is actually empowering our landlords, our registered social landlords, to be able to serve community protection notices. So I know that's something that we're looking at, and that will obviously allow any agency to utilise similar powers in relation to antisocial behaviour where it's property related. So that's quite a useful one, and clearly those charm meetings are quite important for us in terms of information sharing and agreeing a way forward for each of those cases as they arise. The question really for Ryan, and it relates to something you said around data, and obviously as part of your presentation you flashed up the hotspot mapping that you use. And a conversation that we regularly have is the circular argument around people feeling that if they report something, nothing gets done. But ultimately, if it's not reported, you don't have the intelligence to deal with it, and you're not allocated the resources to deal with it. So I just wanted you to elaborate on that a little, please.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously the data we use is, as you say, Nick, it's only the data that we get reported to us. I am fully aware that there's going to be a lot more ASB that happens, a lot more antisocial driving, a lot more drug dealing, drug taking. We can only deal with what we know. We can't be everywhere trying to detect everything if we don't know where it is. So we always encourage, especially at the partnership meetings and like the SOCJAG meetings that we have as well with partners, we always encourage partners to, if they see something while they're out and about, to put in what we call the partnership intel sharing form. It might be different. But yeah, we need as much information as we possibly can from yourselves, members of the public, partner agencies, on what is happening and where and when for us to deal with it. We find a lot of the times when we get contacted, people will say, I've reported this 7 or 8 times previously, and they haven't. And it's often the first time they're reporting it, but it's been an ongoing issue for a long time that if it had been reported before or a bit earlier, we may have been able to nip it in the bud a bit sooner and deal with it. So yeah, we can only deal with what we know about. The information that we have is probably quite skewed in some ways because we're not getting the full reports.
Thank you. And just to come back on that, I think that operational intelligence is really important, and it's incumbent on all of us to encourage people to report every incident that they witness, because otherwise definitely. You do not have the tools to be able to do your job effectively.
No, definitely not. And as you say, with regards to the funding, we have to submit everything we do through several different platforms, but we go by what we're told by the public on where the issues are. If we're not being told about a certain issue, we can't deal with that in that location. The reason why I managed to get so much funding and assistance for the ASB in the town centre was because of the reports that we had in relation to it. If we hadn't had those reports, we actually found out there's been a bit of an issue on Sundays in town, mainly in the atrium. The restaurants have been reporting it to somebody in the atrium who hasn't been sending it through to us. So we didn't know that issue was happening. I could have put resources in place quite a while ago to help deal with that issue, but the reports haven't come through to us in the first place. And we can also look at getting funding from other departments or staff from other departments to come and assist on issues if we know where they are.
And it's a loud and clear message, isn't it? Police decisions are data and intelligence led. If the public aren't sharing that data that intelligence to create that data, then it's not seen as a problem, and that is a stark reality if it's not reported in. I think, Nick, you've really drilled into a really important thing, and perhaps there is a piece not just around parking at schools, but whether there's a wider positive proactive comms piece, and I think that perhaps links into a certain degree with the Neighbourhood Watch team and some positive collaboration there perhaps. Do we have any more questions for Ryan? Councillor Valerie White, the floor is yours.
Didn't want to waste my time. It's a curiosity question, really, after witnessing an incident at the weekend. We were sat at traffic lights, just one-way traffic lights, and a car speeded past us, and within seconds, an unmarked car followed them through. My passenger asked a question, which obviously I couldn't answer, was, are the unmarked cars fitted out inside the same as the marked police cars? With the equipment in?
Yes. Yeah. No, yeah. 9 times out of 10, yes. There's some that don't have all of the equipment in, but yes, most of them, if they're operational vehicles, they have to have certain kit in them. But yes, they are all kitted out with the same stuff as the normal marked vehicles.
Thank you.
Everything we do in the cars is recorded these days, inside and out. So yeah, it's all fitted with the same stuff.
Like a Tesla, but just better. Other electric vehicles are available. Quite clearly so, based on his sales. Are there any other further questions? Nope. Ryan, amazing. Thank you very, very much for what was a really positive and engaging session. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope your relative makes a speedy recovery. And thank you for sharing some time with us this evening. We head into the final item, which is committee work programme. And I thought about trying something slightly different, which I think Nick and Eddie may kill me for later. So we may need some police support to find me. Would the committee be able to each email at least one topic they'd like to see on the work programme? Could I get a commit from everyone just to ping one email with one item through? I've got a yes from Johnny. He's a legal man. So on that basis, I think he speaks for everyone. Sean Garrett's going to come up with two because he's put two
can I
fingers
just
up.
suggest that you get Eddie to send us an email to remind us to do it? Because then you will get a reply. I can guarantee a reply if I get an email asking me to do it.
I'm happy with that idea. I think it'd be quite cool to shape the next work programme. And equally, Ryan and Nick, you are welcome to feed in with advice and options as well. I can't guarantee what will end up on the work programme, but I can guarantee they'll be read and considered very seriously. Oh, my microphone.
Yes, enthusiastic at the end of the meeting.
Thank you very much, everyone. Meeting closed. Hugely successful meeting. Thank you.